Welcome to 108 Contemporary. I'm Laurel Ryan, Program Director, and I'm going to show you how to use our craft kit for the State of Craft exhibition to make a paper version of the Ceramic Mandala by Whitney Forsyth, entitled Halo. Let's get started. The two things you'll need are your craft kit and a pair of scissors. Other options include a cardboard or paper backing. I have some construction paper here, a pen or pencil, and some glue. First things first, let's open up our craft kit. Inside are two elements, a printed version of these instructions and a folded sheet of origami paper. Do you know what origami means? It's a compound word in Japanese meaning fold and paper. Makes sense, huh? Your paper should have one white side and one side with a different color on it. I want to turn this into 16 pieces. How many times do you have to fold a square sheet of paper to get 16 smaller squares? Let's find out. It's already folded once. If I fold twice, not enough. If I fold 3 times, in total, it's 2 more times after that first fold. Well, it's not a square anymore. 4 total times, or 3 times by myself. I have a square. How many do I have? One, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4. A little math will get you to 16. Let's cut these squares. If you really want to elongate this process, slow it down, maybe you're doing something such as listening to music or watching a movie or talking with a friend. Maybe you're not in a hurry and you can cut all these squares out individually. For me, I'm going to take a little shortcut. Origami is designed to be easily folded and cut. It's thinner than a lot of the paper you use in your daily life. One more cut. And then I have 16 individual pieces, and I'm finished with my scissors, so I'll set those aside. Now that I have 16 even squares, the folding begins. So does the design. I'm going to turn these into 3-dimensional objects, but I also want to use the white side on at least some of them. And I'm going to use an odd number to make white squares. I think I'm going to do 5. What do I do next? I start folding. Each of these squares needs to be turned into a triangle. And of course, I'm going to use a shortcut. You don't have to. You can do each of these individually. It's a more relaxing process if you do them one by one. But I'm sure you don't want to sit and watch me do this one by one. The 5 white squares, I'm going to fold so that the black part is on the inside. As you're making triangles, and there it is, 16 even triangles. Whoop. One's hiding. The next step is to give them some dimension. This process needs to be repeated on each square. I'll show you. We're going to open our triangles so that the crease side is down, and then pick 2 adjacent corners on that diagonal, that creased diagonal, and we're going to fold them down inward toward that crease. What that does is not only change the shape, it's no longer a perfect square, but when I flip it over, it's going to stand up just a little bit. There's some dimension to it now. So I've taken our flat paper and turned it into a 3D object. Now to repeat on every other square. Now that I have 11 black squares and 11 white squares, I continue calling them squares even though they're not squares anymore, I can start arranging them. Mandalas are typically arranged from the center outward. It can be a slow process, and I can play around with layering these pieces, making sure that there is space between them, or having them touch. But it's a repeated process. So even though this piece has 4 sides, I have an odd number of white squares. So how can I make my mandala into a repeated pattern and something that is circular? Here is where your pen can come in. If you want to draw a circle and make sure that your pattern stays within that circle, feel free. I'm freehanding it, but you don't have to. Do you know where mandalas come from? What country? What culture? What language? Have you seen them before? What does it make you think of? And finished. I can always wipe this all away and start over again, or I can take my glue, add a dab to that corner where I folded my paper, and then press it down. If I hold it for just a little bit, it'll stay in place, and then I can move my mandala around without worrying that it's going to float away. Do you have to do squares? Not necessarily. Let's try another option. Will the same process of folding work with another shape? Let's find out. I used a pen to mark circles before I cut my squares. So do I have 8 on this side? Yes, I do. Same on this side. And I'm using white on white paper just as an example. So after I trace my circle, I'm going to use my scissors to cut out the shape that I just made. I don't advise doing this with all your whole paper folded. That's why I cut mine in half first. And if you'd like 2 different shapes, then perhaps you cut your bigger piece into squares, into 4 squares, and then fold twice and draw a different shape on each of those 4 squares that you just turned into 16ths. So first I will press this in half, 1 fold, and then it doesn't have corners, but I can still open it up and fold down a portion over here and a portion over here so that it comes to a point. It's not going to have the same overlap. So yours might look like something like this. And when I open it up, well, I get a different shape. If I want to make sure that it stays this way and doesn't tilt, I can always use my glue to attach it to the paper. What shapes did you make? Let us know in the comments, or tag us on Facebook or Instagram at 108 Contemporary. See you in the next one.